Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to make a simple charcoal powered blacksmith's forge that's great for forging knives and tomahawks and other small objects. The aim of this project was to build a very simple forge that pretty much anyone can make without any complex power tools. This small forge is ideal for forging knives and other small objects, and it can get metal really hot up to forge welding temperatures. So let's get started and see how you make it. The first thing to start off with is a steel container, and as you can see here I'm using a steel roasting tray. This roasting tray measures 32 by 18 by 6 centimeters. You can use a lot of different types of containers and people have used different things in the past, but I find that this flat shape is much better for a blacksmith's forge. This is a stainless steel tray, so it's going to be very heat resistant, and you don't want to use galvanized steel because it will outgas with zinc fumes and that will kill you. To start off with, I want to raise the forge off the floor and give it some little legs so that it's not losing a lot of heat through the base and into the ground. So I'm going to center punch one hole in each corner. I then use a hand drill with a 6mm drill bit to drill all the way through each of those holes that I just marked. Then through each hole I put an M6 bolt and attach on a washer and a nut. These M6 bolts are 40mm long. After I've attached those, the forge is raised off the ground and that will help to insulate it. Next I need to drill a hole for my air supply, and the air is what's going to help get this forge really hot because I'm going to be blowing constant compressed air into the forge, which is going to make the fire really hot as it's fueled with more oxygen. The air is going to be supplied through a 20mm steel pipe that I found lying around, and you can pretty much use whatever size you have and whatever size fits your blower. Again, I just start off the hole using a hand drill. It's then enlarged using a metal file and a Dremel tool with a grinding bit. After that, with a bit of force, the pipe can be inserted in through the hole. Now it's time to give the forge its refractory coating, which is going to protect the thin steel of the baking tray from being burned through and also help to insulate the fire so it can get really hot. This is going to be made using a 50-50 combination of plaster of Paris and sand. This is a refractory coating that I originally discovered from a great video by Nighthawk in Light on how to build a soup can forge, and I actually built one myself. If you want to check it out, his video is in the description down below and you should definitely look at it. Plaster of Paris and sand are going to be mixed 50-50 by volume. If you'd want to know where you can find plaster of Paris, it can be bought at most art and craft supply stores or very cheap off the internet, which is where I got mine. And the sand that you can just use regular play sand or very clean beach sand, but I'm just using fine kiln dried sand that I bought from the hardware store. So I fill up my baking tray about 2/3 full of the mix and mix it all together dry, and then I add some water until it's in a clay-like consistency. Basically what you want to do is you want to add about a 1cm coat of the plaster of Paris refractory coating all the way around the baking tray so that it's all insulated, and you want to make sure that it's got a nice trough at the bottom still for the coal to sit. You can then leave the coating for a couple of hours to dry out, and a thermal reaction between the plaster of Paris and the water should set everything up very quickly. I then just take a wood rasp and rasp away all of the rough high areas to make it look a little bit nicer. I also make sure that the air hole is connected to the air pipe so the air can easily blow through it. Now the forge is pretty much finished, and that was very simple. The only thing that you have left to do is to attach an air blower, and for the air blower that I'm going to be using is just this air compressor, which was made for pumping up paddling pools, and I think they're pretty cheap off the internet, but an even cheaper option is just to use an old hairdryer. If you just make an adapter out of cardboard or something so that it fits the pipe size that you used, then that'll easily supply enough airflow. So this is what my forging area looks like when I've got it set up, and as you can see, if you're going to forge something, you're going to also need an anvil. You can make a DIY anvil out of scrap metal pretty easily, but it was easier for me to just buy this really cheap cast iron anvil off eBay. This forge is coal or charcoal powered, and they both work pretty well, and you can just use whatever works best for you. I suppose you could probably also use wood, but the problem with that is it burns and leaves a lot of ash, and it also burns down really quick, and it might not get as hot as the coal or the charcoal. It's very easy to light. All you do is just put some firelighters in and turn on the blower once it's lit, and it basically all just starts to get hot really quick. So you might be wondering why I've chosen to have my air supply coming in the side and not in the bottom. There's a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, it's much more simple if you just have a straight pipe coming in the side, because if it's coming in the bottom, you're going to need to have a mesh and a T-joint and everything so you can get out the ash, and that's a little bit more complicated, and I wanted this to be a very simple and cheap forge. On top of that, it also means that you've got a really localized, very hot area over to one side of the forge, and a much colder area over to the other side of the forge. And as the coals start to get used up on the left hand side of the forge where all of the air is coming in, you can easily just push them along, and it means that it burns from one side to the other, so you've always got your backup supply of coal on the right hand side. One of the reasons that I built this forge is I've got a couple of forging projects that I wanted to make, and I've already started on some of those. And for example, I'm forging this sort of large bowie knife thing out of this lawnmower blade, and I'm also going to plan on making this giant knife out of this drill bit, since a lot of you liked the old drill bit knife from quite a while ago. And both of those projects will be coming up hopefully in the near future if I get them done. I'm also working on forging a karambit from a file and forging just a couple of whittling knives from some Allen keys. There are a couple of advantages and disadvantages to using a coal-powered heat source. Obviously the advantages is it's instant, it's right there, and you can take it with you, but I do prefer actually using an electrical heat source since it's much better, because the disadvantages of the coal is over time they give off a lot of fumes, and all of these aren't very good to breathe in, because it's not complete combustion, so you do get a bit of carbon monoxide, and there's just a lot of smoke and bad fumes. So if you want to see next week how I made this electric powered forge which runs off electrical resistance, this isn't actually a forge, this is more of a foundry for melting aluminium, but it's still sort of a related project. So if you want to see this, check this out on the next week's project, which will hopefully be up next week. Also, an apology for the lack of uploads recently. I'm obviously right in the middle of my GCSEs at the moment, so I've got quite a lot of work going on, and I did explain that in the last video, but quite a lot of you didn't seem to catch that and for some reason think that I'm dead. But I'm not, and hopefully I'll be back in the next couple of weeks sometime. So subscribe so that you can catch those future projects, and I'll see you on the next video.